Today I'm going to show getting started with my LLMBot solution accelerator. So this is on my GitHub site, github.com/PLASNE. And then the LLMBot solution accelerator. This is 3 components. It's a bot framework component that allows you to connect to teams and chat with a bot. So it just handles all the communication back and forth between that. There's a memory component which stores all of the history for those transactions. So the turns of the conversation, the feedback, how long it took to run, all those kind of things. And then there's an inference component which runs a workflow which can use a determined intent step using an LLM, a vector store, and to retrieve documents for RAG, and then an LLM to generate answers. And of course, all those workflows and all these capabilities and stuff are extensible. All the source code is here and freely available if you want to make it work in any other way. All right, so let's talk about getting started. I mean, this does have documentation and stuff on this page, but we are going to go ahead and clone this repo. Let's do a git clone. Okay. Now we go inside and let's take a look. Oops. At the information that's in here. So we have a bot, we have inference, and we have memory. Those are the 3 directories that we're going to use in this particular project. And I'm just going to copy this path for later. So let's start with memory. So you can configure the memory service. If you go and look at the README file, this talks about all the configuration stuff you can do. So out of the box, we support SQL Server for storing all those turns of the conversation and everything. If you look under the services, there's a iMemory store, which is what you would inherit from if you wanted to build your own memory store. However, we don't actually have to configure any of that in order to get it working. Because there's a memory implementation of the memory store also, which just runs in local RAM to make it easy to get started. Obviously in a production solution that's not going to be sufficient, but if we just do a .NET run, okay, we can see all the configuration and we can see that it's using the local memory history service. So that's it. We just pull it down, we do .NET run. Super easy. Now let's configure the inference service. And once again, we're going to find that while there's a README and there's a whole bunch of stuff you could configure, and obviously for a production solution would need to configure, like an LLM and a vector store and all that kind of stuff, none of this is required in order to get up and running. And let's take a look at a couple things in here. So one is, there is this bicycle shop information that I've just seeded into here. And this is just so if you start up with no LLM, no vector store, no nothing, it's just got this data that it can work on. So you don't have to configure any of that to just see the solution running. So we'll look at the workflow steps in a second when we start this up. But basically, it's just going to do keyword matching. So if you do something like, who do I contact? Then it will just find the word contact and feed you back this document reference. So very, very straightforward and simple there. So let's start this up. Okay, when we start it up again, we get the configuration, but then we also get this information about what steps are going to be used for all the kind of standard interface stuff. So determined intent, we actually use determined intent with keywords. So normally you would have determined intent with LLM if you had an LLM configured, and that would do things like, is this a greeting, or is this a goodbye, or is this a change of topic or anything. Without that, what this is just going to do is look for specific keywords. So literally if you do the words new topic, it'll create a new topic, or if you do the word hello, it'll treat that as a greeting, or goodbye as a goodbye. So I mean, it's just very, very rudimentary. And then get documents from Bicycle Shop and pick documents from Bicycle Shop. That's going to use that data that we just looked at, and it's just going to do straight up keyword matching. So if it's literally exactly the same keyword, then it'll find the document. Otherwise, it won't. Very, very basic. And then finally, generate answer. Again, normally you would want to generate an answer via an LLM. However, in this case, since we have no LLM configured, it's just going to answer with citations only. So it's just going to say, here are the documents that I found. Okay? Very basic, very straightforward. And then the final component is the bot component. And again, we're going to look at its configuration. And unfortunately, here we do actually have to configure some stuff. So we do need to, since this is going to connect to Teams, we actually have to create a bot to accept all this traffic in Azure. So we need to create a local.env file with these three things. So we'll just create a file called local.env and drop these three things in. We're going to do a multi-tenant application. You technically can do single tenant or managed identity as well, but I'm not going to walk through those in this demo. And then an app ID and a password. So we need to go out to Azure. So portal.azure.com. Okay, great. And I'm going to create a Azure bot. Yep, this one right here. Create an Azure bot. All right, I'm just going to call this temp2. I've already got a resource group I can use, so we'll just use that. For plan, you really only need free, because since this only integrates with Teams, and Teams doesn't require any sort of upcharge to that licensing there. And then type of application multi-tenant. Again, you can do single tenant. If you do single tenant, you also have to configure an app tenant ID in this file. It's not that much harder, but that is locked down in my environment, so I can't actually do that. And then creation type, I'm just going to have it create a new application registration. So we wait for a second here for this to create. Shouldn't take but a few seconds. Okay, great, it's done. So if we go to this application and I go to the configuration tab, I can now see my application ID. So I can copy that. And my password, if I go here, excuse me, if I go here to manage password, I can see that it generated a password, however it didn't give it to me, so that isn't really useful, so I have to create a brand new password. Alright, and I will copy that and paste that in here. And that's it. So now I've got all the configuration that I need here in my application. There is a little bit more configuration I need to do over here on the bot side. So if I go back to the bot, for one, I need this messaging URL endpoint. So that's once I run this, so let me go ahead and kick this off. Okay. So now this is running. You can see my application ID matches what I've got over here. It's running on port 7000, but this is running on my local computer. Teams needs to somehow get to this service, which is running on my local computer. So the easiest way I found to do that is to use ngrok. So that's ngrok, and then you specify protocols, HTTP, and then a port 7000. You can download this from the ngrok website. You can get this through Homebrew, Chocolatey, any number of things. But what this will just do is it'll give you a public address. So this here. Oops. And okay. Then I can put that up here, and I need to do /API/messages at the end because that's the endpoint for bot framework, and then I apply that. What this is going to do is it's going to take anything that comes in on that and forward it down to my local box. And then the one final thing I need to do is come in here under Channels and go to Teams, Microsoft Teams right here. And I'm going to do this in commercial. So I just apply. Okay, that's created. All right, and now I can open this in Teams. Okay, so now that I have this open, I can now start with maybe just /help. And we can see that my request starts to come in here to the bot, and we can actually see that the bot starts receiving traffic. It's going to take it a little bit for the very first time to start up. So there we go. And you can see now it should be a lot faster if we do that again. Yep, so. And now we can see that actually hit the bot component, but if we look at the memory and the inference component, that didn't do anything because we didn't ask any questions or anything. And now I can ask a question like, who do I contact to fix a bike? All right, so now you can see that we're actually connecting to the assistant. These other components are going to warm up, and then it will tell me, okay, please review these citations. Now, since I don't have an LLM, it can't actually read this data and give me an answer or anything. And this isn't even a valid real URL. But what you can see is that this went through all of the workflow steps. So we went to the memory component and we looked up to see if we have an in-conversation history. We didn't in this case, but if we had, then that would be considered in there. And then we went to the inference component and ran through the workflow and got back a answer over here. And so you can fully use this. The history fully works, the inference fully works, the bot fully works. Everything is perfectly fine. It's not useful in this state until you configure other things like a SQL Server and an LLM and a vector store. But you can get up and going really fast, and then you can start to tweak and build out those components that you need.